Well, it appears we are live. Do we seem live? Oh, live in, yes, live now. Do you know, this is my first live stream, so I need to check with my guest. Michelle, do you see us live on the channel?
I'm going to look right now.
Happy Sunday. It's Yogi Chander.
Yes, there we are. Live.
We are?
Yeah. It looks like we're. Yep. Yes, there we are. Hey, we got it. Are you able?
Excellent.
Let's see. Wait. I'll. Let me mute this and then. Yes, there we are. Hang on. And then,
Awesome.
if I can mute this, I'll be able to see the chat. There we go. Okay.
Hey.
Hey.
So, is it, you can see the chat as well?
Yes, I can.
Well, hello, everyone. This is Yogi Chander, and this is my first time doing a live stream, and please forgive any technical difficulties. We're just kind of noticing that I forgot to hook up some software and things in time, so I'm hoping that everyone is able to see us and maybe even chat. That's the one thing I wasn't sure about, was the chat. So I'm in StreamYard now.
Hi, Amanda. Amanda's here. Hi, Amanda.
Amanda, I see too.
See? There you go.
Can you see the chat then, Michelle?
Yes, I
Are
can.
you able? Oh, awesome. Well, let me welcome you here.
I'm watching it. I'm looking at it on my phone. Thank you.
Good idea. I should be doing that. Live and learn, right? Everybody, hello. This is Yogi Chander, and this is Who's Zoomin' Who, episode 2. And with me is the esteemed and fabulous, no hyperbole here, the brilliant and lovely and wonderful Michelle Embry, who is a writer, a tarot card reader, and weaver of all sorts of magic, I believe. And so I'd like to welcome her to this space. Hi, Michelle.
Hi, Chander. Thank you for having me on. This is going to be a fun talk.
Man, you know it. And I appreciate your patience and anybody else's patience too.
No worries.
Amanda, thanks for being here. Please give us any feedback, along the way. And if I can figure out how to give you a wrench or something, I will. Anyway, she says she's tweeting again, so maybe we'll have some more people showing up.
Sounds good to me.
In the meantime, how's your day been?
My day has gone by way too fast, actually. Like, I just tried to do some online, get some stuff done on my Facebook page, and I swear it took all day. And I said, where did the day go? That's how my day went. But other than that, it was fine.
Yeah, that sounds like most of my days.
It really sucks up your time. People don't really recognize it. I'm glad that I don't have to do it. I'm glad I work for myself and I don't have to do those things for a boss. I mean, I just feel like if I had to explain for a boss, like, it takes all day to promote your events on Facebook, they wouldn't believe that.
Right?
I'm just glad it's just for me, and I know it takes all day.
Yes, right. And you don't have to bill by the hour or anything like that.
Yeah, that's right. No, I wish. That part I wish. I wish I could bill myself by the hour.
That's not a bad idea. They say that you should be paying yourself first if you're in business for yourself, but that's if you're not getting paid.
Yeah. Right.
You. Are you? Is this your first time tuning into YouTube for the day, or?
It might be actually for today. Yes, actually, Tuesdays are kind of a big work day for me, which is mostly like, I don't know. I just kind of divide up the week where I have readings and I have workshops that I do. And then I have a book that I'm working on, and I have, and I just kind of divide things up. So Tuesday is really my day to like annoy myself with the internet, So that's really what Tuesdays are all about.
That sounds fair. I mean, that sounds like a lot on your plate. Tell me about the new book.
Well, it's a tarot book that actually I've been working on for quite a while, but I have the bulk of it done at this point. And because I would work on it for a bit and then put it down, and work on it for a bit and then put it down, which I think is a fine way to work, because I've been writing my whole life. I published a book years ago. I'm a playwright. I do a monthly column in Anti-Gravity magazine. I was a zine-ster back in the 90s. All the kids made zines, and I was one of them, So, I'm not, do you know zines?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, heck yeah. So, so I'm not new, to the game or whatever, but my ability to put my tarot work really into my alignment with what I feel like I'm able to do as a writer and as a philosopher has really come a long way for me since I started working on the book. So now I'm really at a point where I'm like, all of these things really feel great. And so my goal is to have the book complete by January 20th. But I want to get the it's coming up soon, but I want to get it out, the what do you call the submission? I want to submit it. I want Llewellyn to do it if I can get on that train. Llewellyn, the big if I can get
classic.
Yes, right. And it's the largest publisher of tarot books in the world. And, I know, a couple of folks that write for them. And, apparently, kind of once you get going with them, they want a lot of books from you. And I would like to do that. So anyway, right now it's really just about getting my submission into them, but I'm finishing the book one way or another. But I feel like I can get hooked up with Llewellyn. I feel like I can do that. But we'll see. I could be overconfident, but I don't think so.
I like the positive attitude for sure. And I mean, you've got the content. It's just a matter of, is it going to jive with whoever sees your, I guess, submission maybe, right? So,
and I set out.
Sorry.
They have kind of a long packet, actually. Yeah, they want you to be. I mean, it's very professional, really, because they want you to and this is something like when I teach, writing, that I always tell people, my students, because this is just part of the business, is the publisher is going to want to know, how is your book different than anything else we have, but how is it also exactly the same? Right? Because right? And that's a real, I think, that's a real conundrum for authors, are like, what? But that's what they're asking you, is they're like, how are you going to uniquely do something that we do every day? And we need it. And we need it to be something that we do every day, because that's what our readers want, but they just want a twist on it. Right. So that's part of it. It's like, what are your number one competing titles? And I think that can be daunting if you don't know what they're asking you. And what they're asking you is, how is your book like? How is your book like? What books is your book like? Meaning, which books is your book going to compete with? It's just kind of, once you get your mind around it, it makes a lot of sense. But at first you don't, so that's in there. They want an annotated bibliography, which is a lot of work. I have all of these things done, a nice cover letter. I have all of that done. It's just really, I want to turn in a really perfect sample right now. And that's where I'm at. But that happens, I would say that it goes out next Wednesday, honestly, will be the time that I get that sample pack out. I'm ready. So yeah, their packet's kind of a big, it's kind of a big deal, but it's all good with me. It's all good with me. I like the business itself, so it's okay with me.
You enjoy the process of writing it?
Yeah, I enjoy the process of writing. Yeah, I do enjoy the process of writing it. I absolutely do. I mean, sometimes it can be hard to get your butt to sit down in the chair and do the work. I think, but then also but at the end of the day, it feels really good. at the end of a day when I've been able to do some, writing. And, I kind of go years ago, something that I learned from something Stephen King said is he was, back in the day when he wrote his own books, right? I mean, now he has like a team, but but he wasn't, and I'm not slagging on him. That's how it goes. He's his own industry. You know what I mean? He's a cottage industry of in and of himself. So, but years ago, one of the things he said is he's like, listen, you can't, you set yourself on a pace and you write 4 pages or 4 hours a day. If you finish 4 pages in an hour, great, you're done. If you, if you only get 2 pages done in 2 hours, great, or 4 hours, great, you're done. 4 pages or 4 hours. And he always said, and do it, have a work week, have that be your work week, 5 days a week, and do that. And you'll finish books like that's, but if you try to you have these 10-hour marathon days, he's like, honestly, you're not going to use most of that. Most of that's not going in your book. And now you're going to be worn out. And you're not going to feel like, you're not going to be on pace. You might not come back to that book for a month, and everything you wrote in those 10 hours is actually garbage. And I was like, that's so smart. That was before I even went to college. I had read him say that, and I was like, that's really smart. And he's right. And so I also just if you follow my social media, I put up tarot cards every day. So that's even on the days when I'm not sitting down and either doing my own journaling work or doing other types of writing or working on my tarot book, I get that writing done every day. And, and it's just a great practice. It practices as somebody said to me, they're like, practice makes practice. And I was like, oh, that's brilliant. Because it's true. You practice. And, they say practice makes perfect, but it doesn't. But if you don't practice, you get really rusty, no matter what it is.
Right. I mean, it's even like doing this tonight. It's the learning curve is there. Right. And so, but you got to get there and you got to practice and do it and get the process going and make it a regular thing. And I think that I know that creative types like myself and you and many others sometimes struggle with that discipline thing because you want to feel the art, you want to feel what you're doing and stuff. But I think the discipline of making it a habitual thing integrates it into your world in a much more organic way. And I've heard that advice too. I didn't realize it was from Stephen King. That's cool.
I think he was the first one to say it. That's where I learned it.
And if you know that that's your time and you're there to do your thing, the end result isn't really the important thing. It becomes about that process, doesn't it, eventually?
Yeah, the ritual. I mean, it all comes back to magic and magical practice and the ritual of it.
That's a good point. So I wonder, do you have some rituals that you do before you sit down for that time?
Well, I turned my ritual into the tarot cards that I put up every day, and I've been doing that it's been 6 years, which I can't believe now, but it's been 6 years that I've been doing that. And the reason that I did that, that tarot card in the morning, I know I get up, I get my cup of coffee, and then I sit down and I do this card. 5 days a week, I take 2 days off. Anybody who does a magical practice or or an exercise practice, kind of the same thing. No matter what you're doing, you take a couple days off a week. But I get my coffee and I sit down and I do that tarot card. And even on the days when I don't feel like it, which usually I feel like it, but some days I don't. Sure. Right. But I have an audience out, people, I have an audience that's expecting that. Yeah. So it's a way of holding me accountable. So that actually works for me. So my daily ritual really is that. That's the one practice I really keep. But honestly, if it wasn't the social media for me, really, that works for me. And that's actually, you can turn anything into a magical practice, right? Or a magical container. I use a conference line. I put my headphones on. That's why I'm doing this. I put my headphones on with my little mic, and that I do my tarot readings on. But my conference line has hold music on it, right? It's just really generic. It's not my music. It's not any. It's really generic. Came with the conference line, okay? But that music starts playing. I put it on a couple minutes before my clients get online, and that music starts playing, and I marked that music to be to get me into the mood, to be my magical container. So here's this like elevator music that I listened to for a couple of minutes, but because I determined, I said, you will be a magical container and you will trigger this part of myself, right? It works. It completely works. And so I used social media to do the same thing. All of these tools, you know, we can use them for ourselves in whatever way we designate. That's the word I'm looking for. Designate. I designated these things to be my container because I kind of need things to be simple for me. You know, I'm not, you know, I need that. Like I'm definitely not the sort of person that's going to get up and have this long practice, especially anything that's like arduous physically in any way. Like, you know, it's just that's not going to ever work for me. So I don't want to live my whole life just failing at things that I wasn't cut out to do in the first place, you know? So I find, right? Yeah. And what's the point? Your whole life is wasting away while you're just feeling crummy about setting yourself up to do things you weren't cut out to do in the first place. Drop it, forget it, you know? Find things that are there for you, which actually takes me back to like kind of something I wanted to say about my book, this one that I'm working on. I set out to make a tarot book that's for a mass audience, right? And one thing I did in the title, it's called Tarot Quest, 3 minutes a day to empower your insight. And so like the whole idea is that you can have a magical practice every day in 3 minutes by turning over a card while your coffee brews. And you just, you know, you give that, I don't know, 3 weeks, 6 weeks, you set the time, you give it that much time, you will have a magical practice and your days will be different and your life will be different.
I love that. It's just like tending a garden or something, you know? I mean,
yeah. Hang on, I got to turn this heater off.
I know, it's getting a little warm in here. I thought it was just me.
No. We're talking about magic. It gets all heated up. It's true.
That is so amazing because, I mean, I still struggle with that. And it took me forever even to think that was a possibility, is to let go of those things that I'm not awesome at and let other awesome people be awesome at that and let me be awesome at what I'm awesome at.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Yeah. So I don't know, did you spend a lot of time trying to improve yourself and trying to fit yourself in boxes that didn't quite work before you started to come into your own, or has it always been real natural for you just to do what you do?
That's a good question. No, I think that it took me some time because I like, you know, I started with I was in like academics was really, you know, my thing. And I wanted to go on to like do that, you know, and, you know, teach writing at the schools. But that, you know, that whole industry like bottomed out anyway. Those jobs are not, you know, really specifically available anymore. They're just not as they don't pay a living a lot of times, you know. Right. And then, but I also had I had managed a couple of performing arts venues at one point in time.
Really?
Which was a job I really loved. Yeah. Yes. It was a big job actually. There was a proscenium theater that seated 300, and then across the campus from that, you know, not very far, it was a small campus, was a dinner theater that would seat 200 people. And so there were weekends and I loved it. So there were weekends where there'd be 2 different shows going on. There were 500 people there, you know, plus the food and, you know, ticket booths and all of these things. And like, I was in my element. Like I loved that. I loved doing that. And so, but it's, you know, what wound up happening, which is interesting because actually my boss was, he was a big Republican. There were lots of big Republicans, which was fine. Like, I don't care. But what wound up happening, you know, because like the senators would come and, you know, they loved his theater and stuff and they were friends with him, you know, and that was fine. That was fun in a lot of ways because I'd be like, oh, you know, all these politicians are here or whatever. But then finally, This was in Louisiana, and they finally got him, which had a Democratic like Senate for a while. And anyway, they finally got a Republican in, and of course, all of our budgets were cut. So like that's so. And I remember my boss saying, "We finally get a Republican in office, and he cuts my budget." Like he took it like really, like he didn't think it would happen to him. And so he went from having a huge budget for like performing arts, like $250,000 a year or something,
That's amazing.
Yeah, to like nothing. It got cut down to like nothing. And so anyway, that's how I lost my job in that industry, But I just think the story of my boss kind of actually voting himself out of pay is kind of funny. It's still funny to me. That was like a long time ago. So it's still funny to me. Which, by the way, that was Bobby Jindal. And so like I know he's like coming up in the ranks, just to let you know, he will take your arts funding.
Wow. Were you a performer as well, or did you just like stand behind the scenes and making shit happen?
At that job, I stood behind the scenes and made shit happen. Yeah, and I loved it, juggling all those things at the time. So like, yeah, I wanted different careers like that in my lifetime. I was kind of like, I wanted those things. I wanted to have those types of jobs, and I kind of liked being in the mix, back then, and, having, students at the school, or, doing, patrons and things at the arts, I enjoyed those big jobs back then. Right. So in terms of like finding myself, with all of this, but as all of those things, the bottom fell out. Right. So like the things that I was doing, I was not going to move forward with. So I struggled for a long time of thinking like, well, like you still have like these skills, in like middle management, you still have these people skills, and like public speaking is something that always that I did when I was a kid, and I like a lot, that's important, So I kind of maybe tried to put myself into like, for years, I kind of struggled, like, what industry are you going to go into? Like, what career are you going to make now? And I guess at some point in time, it was like, no. I took on some other jobs here and there, and I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. And so to answer your question, I am a performer, but it's not something that I didn't study acting. That's not really my bag, but I am a public speaker. And I had been, like I said, I did it when I was a kid. I did it all through college, and that's kind of what I wind up doing with my own work, which I still do my own creative work, which is I do this storytelling work that I write the stories, and then I work with a musician, and we do these pretty magical stories that we tell, not this year, because nobody does any of those things, but I didn't do that. I mean, nobody cared about that stuff at the theater I worked at. I'd published a novel, I was a performer, nobody cared about that. My boss didn't care about that, my coworkers didn't care about that. I would been there for a while, and they were like, "You wrote a book?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm kind of famous." Like, thanks for noticing.
Like, you guys should be my number one fans here. What's up?
Yeah, right. And they don't care, but that wasn't my job there, and it wasn't interesting to anyone either, so I don't know, it's just, life is funny like that. So anyway, yeah, I think I'm I'm telling you about myself. I think that's the main thing. But yeah, that's how that all came, that's how all of this shifted for me. And so then kind of in the interim between realizing like, okay, you're not going into just also realize like you're not really cut out for all that stuff in the end. Like once I had a break from it a little bit, I was like, that isn't even, he'll take it all out of you in time anyway. It's best that this happened the way that it did. Now what? And in that interim period of time, I had a little bit of money dropped on me, so I didn't have to work for a few years. You could have made a different choice with that. People, buy a house or, something like that. I was like, no, I'm going to not work for 6 years. That's my, that's my house, right? And
house. Well said. Yeah.
Right. That's, and it's really true, So anyway, I just, I wrote I wrote the stories that go with the music, and I really realized I'm like, okay, I love tarot cards, and I love philosophy, and I love writing, and I love talking to people about spirituality and trauma and relationships and how to make things work in your life to some degree. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to figure out how to put all those things together. And I really feel like, yeah. And so because I remember the first day that I put a tarot card up on Facebook. It was December of 2014. And I sat there for a while before I did it, because I was like, Michelle, once you do this, that's it. You're out of the broom closet. Like,
yep.
Right? Like, everybody's going to know, and I'd been reading cards for a long time. I even, read them professionally, but I didn't hang my shingle out. Like, you had to kind of know me and come to me for a reading, like a lot of people do. You'll be surprised, people are like, they're like, yeah, I read cards. I do. I'll meet you out back in the parking lot, kind of style. But I remember I was like, right? As soon as you hit post, man, like, that's it. Everybody's going to know. And it's fun. It was just a funny moment. Cause especially then, if you were looking for a job or anything, they were going to check all of your social media. I mean, I guess they still do, but for me, it's kind of funny because it doesn't feel like a big deal now. But at the moment that I did it, I was like, this is it. It felt like jumping off a cliff. It really did.
I feel you there. I mean, in my own way, I understand that, because I'm sort of one of those closeted sort of people too. It's like, as a male, especially where I grew up, there was just a certain amount of cool that you lose if you're into magic and woo-woo stuff.
Where'd you grow up?
Say again?
Where'd you grow up?
Colorado.
Okay.
So there was enough like woo-woo around to where it wasn't out of the question, but you kind of had to keep it in check, And so even still, I kind of it's new for me to talk about those things like in public, and to actually own the power of it and stuff like that, and to acknowledge it fully. And I know exactly what you mean with the tarot cards. I'm not a tarot reader, but I've known lots of people who are just like that. It's like, I do, but I don't really, but I do.
Right. Right. Well,
that's great.
Just this past year, the New York Times ran an article that it was like, therapists are having to learn tarot and astrology. It was kind of a funny article because you had all these like people with their like PhDs or whatever, and they're like, oh, well, I don't believe in it, but my clients do, so like, which I also thought was like really fun. Oh, me, no, not me, no, but my clients, and they put it in this like, well, the millennials or whatever, the younger millennials, they all come in and they're like, well, my Mercury's in retrograde or whatever, right? I just thought it was a funny article to come out, and especially since it makes me think to myself, like, you did the right thing, Michelle. You made the right choice, because that's a book I want to write too, is like a book for like tarot for therapists. Like, here's what your clients are talking about.
Brilliant.
Kind of, right?
That's brilliant.
Ellen, call me.
Right. People need to bridge that gap, and I can't believe there's not a book like that out there. That's perfect.
I know, right?
Have you thought about going the therapy route yourself?
Yes, I had. But by then, I'd already done my college. I did my bachelor's, and I'd already done a master's in playwriting. And at that point, I was like, I'm just out of money. Like, I just can't, that's like all the education I can really get right now, and then too, it's kind of a funny thing too, because at this point, like, because I read, I keep up on how therapists run their businesses. I keep up on what they're talking about. I mean, I am just stone cold, straight up an unlicensed therapist, and I don't have any problem telling people that. I'm like, look, that's really what we're doing here. And so but I keep up with the business end of it too. And here's the thing with therapists these days, it's hard to get on with a network to be paid out of insurance. So more and more therapists, rather than being like $150 an hour and you pay 50 and your insurance sends them $100, they're really just working for 60 or $80 an hour, which is what I charge. And they're running their own practices out of their house. They're advertising in exactly the same way I am. I mean, right? So at this point in time, I'm also like, see, you're still on the right track, Michelle. You're still kind of doing it right. And there's lots of people who don't even trust people who have PhDs.
Right.
You have a lot of people who are just like I don't think those people understand me or care about me, or what are they going to know about my experience? Somebody who had the privilege to get a PhD, how are they even going to know about me? So I kind of ride that wave too.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, in a positive way. I'm just, right. I'm just like, well, we can just do this, we can just, you and me, like, we can just kind of do this as regular people.
Regular people just making it real. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Right.
It kind of takes that separation of status or something away. I don't know. It just makes you more relatable. It makes it more real, I think.
Yeah.
So you got a master's.
I agree. I agree. And I have lots of clients, so I especially like. Yes.
Is it me? Go ahead.
Oh, no. I have clients who will say, like, almost every other thing they say during a session, I'll be like, that's what my therapist said. That's what my therapist said. I'm like, yeah, I'm sure it is, So, yeah, I did a master's in playwriting. Yes.
Do you think that this is kind of a strange question and it's totally off the cuff, but I'm wondering if you see any, how can I put this? Do you see the stories that people are telling themselves? Do you view that as kind of like in a play form, or do you get what I'm saying?
I do. I actually talk about this with people a lot. Is something that I did with my own work, with my own trauma work. Which I was seeing a therapist, but this was something I did for myself, was I dramatized everything that was happening in my head. And I turned it into this, like, my head was the kingdom, and there were all of these elements to it, including like, the flying monkeys, and like, they'll come from over, from over the hills, and here they come, and it's going to be a bad day when the flying monkeys come, but at the same time, they are part of the landscape. They're part of the story. Like, I'm not, right? I'm not trying to get rid of the flying monkeys because they're not going anywhere. They're part of me. I just want them to stay on the other side of the hill as much as possible. And I want to be able to see them coming. Like when I see, which for me, the flying monkeys are other people's voices, maybe that I heard in my life, or voices that or voices that I developed to, like, on the one hand, harm and protect myself simultaneously, right? But they're all of these like negative stories that sometimes they just come for you, and man, they get you, and there's nothing you're going to be able to do about it. And for that day, your head is full of these voices, right? And that's what I consider the flying monkeys. And, like, right? So I don't ever expect that the flying monkeys are going to go somewhere else. I don't think that's going to happen. But being able to see them coming, being able to brace myself for it, being able to look around at other allies that are in my head, right? So there's other voices that are in my head that are my allies. And some of those voices are mine. Some of them belong to friends, and other people who have loved me in my lifetime, teachers I've had, artists.
Like which ones are supporting the narrative that you want to live, right?
Right. And I can look, if I see the flying monkeys coming, I can turn to all of that and I can be like, here they come. And there's, right? And then kind of engage them. Again, it doesn't mean that I'm not going to have these times. It just means that I'm really well resourced to deal with them. And I do think, and there was like, and so there were various demons in this story, and I did battles with them, and I still see them. There's one really big, huge, nasty demon that I remember sitting down in the corner. I remembered it was 2012, and he came for me in this way that like I couldn't get out of bed. Like it was like I could feel him and smell him like on me, and I just told this story while it was happening. I couldn't get out of bed, but I told this story, and I was like, I'll tell you what, if you can beat me today, you can have my kingdom. It's yours, but you have to win. You have to win. And the thing about it was, that guy, he hasn't said one fucking word since then, but he's there every single day. He's a big stinky demon in the corner every single damn day of my life. But I'll tell you what, he has not ever had anything else to say to me, right? Since then.
That's huge.
See,
I mean, that was so packed with stuff. Was that like an actual, like a sleep paralysis moment for you?
No, it wasn't, but it was a really bad like trauma time period for me where I was really reliving a lot of things that had happened, physical things that had happened when I was a kid. And I was just really reliving a lot of it. And I could feel a lot of like physical pain that was like memory stuff, emotional pain that was memory, all of this, to where like I was physically pinned down on my bed, truly, but not by actually anything outside of myself. It's just my body and my mind were very, very sick at that moment in time. And by telling a story about it, by saying, no, I'm the queen of this kingdom and you're a demon and we are going to have a battle. And at first, that first day, like, because it was 3 days long. And that first day, I wasn't saying you can have my kingdom. It was the second day because I was so tired. And I was like, I feel like I'm going to lose. And I feel like I'm just going to go down this hole and never come back and never be myself again. And that's when I said, you know what? You have to beat me. You have to put me all the way down. You have to win. Otherwise, it's mine. He's looking at me right now like, he still won't say anything. So to answer your question, yes, you can have all kinds of things. And at that time period, probably from about 2011 through about 2014, every day I played with these different dramas in my heads, these different parts of myself. And I don't so much anymore. I have the flying monkeys though. I've got the demon in the corner, I have my guides and my teachers and my mentors. Behind me, my ancestors are there. Like, I mean, to a degree, I play out these stories still, but not like I was during that time period in my life. And so when I talk to clients, I really encourage them to do that. I'm like, make a drama out of it, make a story out of it. And also really encourage people to like, whatever happens to you in your mental health, if you just keep consistently telling yourself, I have to stop being depressed. I have to stop being anxious. I have to stop, having PTSD and breaking down when this happens or that happens. I have to make all of those things stop. I just don't think you're going to get very far with that stuff. Like if you're just like, you know what, a lot of people go through this. I'm a person that goes through this. I think you can legitimately start to make it better.
Wow. Again, just so much right there. It's like, yeah, you can keep telling yourself how you want to behave or something, but to give it context and to give it a living, breathing sort of a thing that you can work with and mold, has so much more impact.
I think so too. And to be able to say like where you're at right now is fine. Like if you just stand in one place and you keep telling yourself, I shouldn't be in this place, I don't know what's going to happen. I mean, I don't know how we're going to move forward or backward or anywhere. Like, I don't know what's going to happen. So like, to be like, no, you're standing right there. Let's talk about right there. And so like you get depressed. Let's talk about like what that's about. Let's talk about how to, manage that and cope with that. Let's have that be okay. Like, let's just have that be okay. You keep telling yourself it's not okay to be who you are. It's not okay to be where you are. It's not okay to have the problems you have. Yes, it is. It's fine. You're just a person in this world. Like, it's hard to be a person. It's hard to be a person. It's hard to have these feelings. It's hard to live a whole life, So like, it's fine. Wherever you are is fine. And we can work that out. So that's how I work with people. And that's how I work with myself, because it's not like I don't have these days where I'm like, no, it's not okay to be the way you are. And then there's, the other characters come in and they're like, we don't work like that. Remember? And I'm like, oh yeah, okay. right.
Wow. The monkeys. So do you feed them and take care of them and stuff, or do you just kind of send them off into their land on the other side of the mountain or whatever and hope that they don't come by?
Yeah, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, they live on the other side of the hill. It's all my kingdom, but they live over there and they take care of themselves. I don't feed them. I don't think about them. I don't deal with them. But sometimes I look up and there they are, blackening the sky, and here they come, And I turn around, I'm like, all right, to all my other characters in my head, it's gonna be one of them their days, So let's do the things that we know are good for us, and that's we being, the other characters in my head, right? So but that's playwriting. It absolutely is, and I absolutely do bring it into the work that I do, and really encourage people to like. Yeah, make a drama out of what's in your head. I mean, and write it, because you write all the characters, you're writing for all of the characters, So, but be realistic. Don't write an unrealistic story for yourself.
Wow, that's so powerful.
I think so.
I mean, it really is. I mean, it's just, I can't believe that I haven't actually approached things in quite that way. It makes sense to me. I mean, the idea of putting it into a play context is really cool. And what am I trying to say? The ability to mold that and shape it and to realize, this is going in a negative direction here. This is becoming a drama. It's becoming a tragedy. It's becoming a horror story or whatever it is. And, to be able to look at that and go, is this the narrative that I really want? Do I want a romantic comedy or something or whatever it might be? And so to be able to do that.
I always have the same picture. Anytime somebody says romantic comedy, I see somebody with like a bag full of apples and they turn the corner and the other person hits them and the apples go. I always see the same thing when somebody says that. You pick up the apples and it's the love of your life. I don't know why.
I totally see that. Like you pick up the apple and it's you.
Yeah. Right.
That's awesome.
Yes. So storytelling is it's powerful. I mean, what else is the world, And of course, the tarot is all about storytelling too.
Indeed. So do you feel like I don't know? Actually, have you? Kind of a separate question. Have you ever used the tarot to write the story?
I've done little bits like flash fiction. I do some like every once in a while I do like a fun kind of workshop, tarot writers type of workshop, where we draw tarot cards and write little short stories, pieces like that. So for the most, I mean, so I haven't really, well, I guess maybe that's not entirely true. I have with the series of stories that I wrote, the Crush Kit trilogy is a series of stories that I wrote that I do with a musician that's continuing on with a different musician. But in those stories, I knew what the characters were, and I kind of knew. What's that?
I love the sound of that. That sounds so fun to do that.
It's so fun. It's really fun. And they're like interconnected stories. They're very magical. They take place in these very magical ways and make beautiful things. It all happens in a beauty shop, but like all the ancestors come and there's like, you know, I mean, it's full of all of this like magic, and they like the god of war dies in a precipice in the back of the beauty shop or whatever, right? So it's like it's a beauty shop, but it's a portal, you know, to this magical world. And so I knew what the characters were and I knew what the stories were, but I drew a tarot. In each story does feature a tarot card that I did draw out of, like when I sat down to actually write the story, like which card is for this character in this story. And so I didn't choose the card out of my mind. I did draw it from the deck. So I guess I did in that regard. I hadn't really thought about that before, but yeah, there's a card featured in each one. And that was a true draw. So yeah. So I guess so. Yeah, I do.
Wow. And now, I mean, okay, so I just had an interview recently with Niche, who's here. Hey, Niche, how's it going?
Hey,
we were, she was talking about the Vesica Pisces and that space in, you know, between, and I guess I have a habit of kind of hanging out in those spaces, and then so I find lots of neat little rabbit holes or Vesica Pisces to go down often. And so, you know, if we wander a little bit, please forgive me. But now you're making me think about the tarot and other ways to use it. Have you ever used it either to inspire or to interpret your dream world?
That's a great question. No, I haven't, but I will now.
Me too.
I will now. I've been thinking a lot about dreams, really this year, but then especially after that conversation with Niche a couple weeks ago. So then I've really been thinking about it.
Great
more. Yeah, right. So that's actually a great idea.
What are you referring to specifically?
What the using tarot cards to like kind of like what was that all about last night? I hadn't really thought about doing this, but I will. I will let you know how it works.
Awesome. I'm also wondering, like, have you ever thought about I don't know, have you ever longed for a card that wasn't there? Like, you know, a card that doesn't exist in the tarot deck?
Ooh, gosh, that's a great question. Have I? I don't guess I have, but I maybe haven't thought about that either, Chandler. I maybe haven't thought about that either.
You know, it's interesting. It has its own like paradigm, right? And so everything seems to fit quite nicely, and so maybe it doesn't require anything like that. But
well, I don't know. I mean, I think that I tend to be really a traditionalist with a lot of things. Like I'm pretty like, you know, like I use fairly traditional tarot decks. I follow, you know, I'm pretty, you know, like there was somebody who once like kind of pulled, like she had the 9 of Swords and she's like, someday, you know, this card won't mean anything to us. And I was like, what? You know, like, how dare you, you know? So I can be a little bit, I won't say stuck. I just enjoy, I'm a Taurus with a Virgo moon, you know, so like I really like enjoy that. I'm like, give me the like framework on this, and then I like to see how many different ways, how creative I can be within these frameworks. So I tend to be a little bit traditional in that way, and so right, and I mean, and I think I get great results from that. At the same time, that you know, having kind of folks that are a little less structure based than myself come in and say, well, have you ever thought about this thing outside of the box? And I'm like, oh yeah, well, no, because I forgot that there was a thing I forgot there was an outside to the box. So no, I didn't. But thank you. You know, so like, and so I don't, you know, and I love that because it's not my personality. So I need other people to kind of come in and say things like that. So I'll think about that. It's just funny when you said that, because when you said, have you ever looked for a card, you know, that wasn't there? And the first thing I thought of was years ago, that woman, you know, like someday this will be gone. And I'm better now, but I left that reading like, what in the world? Like, I just so unnecessarily offended at the time.
I can respect that. No, totally. You know, that framework is real important. You know, I'm a person who really is, I think I do better outside of the box and totally free form, but really if you have a framework within which to improvise, I think it's better for me for sure.
Yeah. I mean,
and to respect the boundaries is good.
It's something, I mean, it's definitely something, because writing is like that also, you know, and it's something that as when I teach writing, which I still do, I just don't do it within an academy. I do it on my own, and it actually goes really well. My workshops are full and they're great. You know, and I enjoy them a lot, but that's one of the things that, you know, like I still talk to you about people who come to my workshops. I'm like, you know, when the sky's the limit, in some ways you have less to work with. Like when your story, your book and your story will keep fanning out into the future, into the, you know, and keep, you know, and it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger until it's just this beast that you can't, you know, pull into a form that it was really expressive of yourself. I mean, anyone can argue with what I just said and be completely accurate and valid in doing so, right? I don't think I've cornered, right? It doesn't, this is one of those things in life where you kind of, you look at where you're like, here's where I stand. And you just kind of stand there and recognize that like other people are not wrong, but this is what you're going to get from me, you know, like as a writing teacher or as a tarot card reader, this is what you're going to get from me. So like by imposing a certain amount of limits, I feel like there is, I don't want to say forces creativity, because it's more like the creativity grows right in front of me. Like my mind doesn't keep, you know, casting out farther and farther and farther and farther. It's working with what I have and what's in front of me and in the limits of things. So yeah, I don't know. I do think limits are good for creativity, you know, but again, I'm open to like experimentation with people who feel like they can, you know, help give me a way to do that. I'm open to, you know, so to say that.
That's cool. Are you a practitioner of any kind of physical arts, dance or martial arts, or any kind of physical thing?
I mean, you know, like going out to the clubs. Yeah, that's one of the, I mean, it's one of the things. Yeah, that's free form. Actually, yes, dance is something I do free form, but it's one of the things during the pandemic. Like, I haven't got to go down. I usually spend about half the year in New Orleans and half in Missouri.
Wow.
And this year I haven't gotten to go to New Orleans and at all. And one of the things that I miss, and especially right now, I'm really fantasizing about a lot, is dancing with my friends, is dancing. So like, you know, and it's not that I don't like dance around in my own house. It's just, I do. But it's just funny. It's like, you know, I'll be driving to the grocery store, you know, with putting my mask on, you know, when I get there. But as I'm like driving along, that's the whole thing. Is what's in my mind is me and all these people like dancing and having this wonderful time. So I do that. I'm more free form physically. And I certainly have like gone through time periods where I loved going to the gym, or I loved like working out at home and doing those kind of things. And then I go through periods where I'm like, no, I think I'll eat chips in bed forever, you know? Like, yeah. Because I'm just a person.
Did you ever approach your dance times with a I don't know, did you have sort of a ritual or anything that you would do before going out for the clubs? I mean, besides the obvious of getting ready and stuff like that.
Right. No, I haven't. No, I haven't done that. No. I'm thinking, because like now I have all these pictures in my head. I'm like, well, I mean, you know, I've been to some like really weird, like witchy, like weird. They're not weird. They're wonderful. I've been to some really, you know, witchy, like woodsy, you know.
It's weird with a Y. Weird with a Y.
Yeah. Weird with a Y. Yeah, exactly. You know, witchy, like dance, you know, circles, ritualistic stuff that we did in the woods, you know, where you're like, you know, yeah. I mean, if you came upon it, I suppose it would look rather odd unless you were a witch yourself. You know, you'd be like, I know what they're doing, you know, working the sacral and like howling at the moon or whatever. So I guess that's ritualistic, but it's not something I like, you know, practice often or alone. That's what came to mind when you're like, you ever have a ritual? I'm like, well, sure.
That's fair. You know, I miss dancing days too. I miss being able to just go out and well, pretty much go out and do whatever you want to, right? That's tough. That kind of box is not so much fun to live within sometimes. But you know, to that end, just as another kind of a little segue, with our whole reality that we're going through right now, do you find that? Do you believe that if we kind of focus on that reality that we really want to create, that is actually going to draw it to us? Or do you think that people are getting so swept away with other people's, what other people are telling them reality is becoming, and losing sight of their own, and so therefore there's not enough power to create a new reality, kind of a thing? That question kind of split in a lot of ways, but I guess go ahead.
Well, yes. I mean, yeah, it's split in a lot of ways, but I get it. It has to. So like, I'll take it back, like way back. Let's go way back. Let's go back to Plato and the thought forms, right? So like he always, you know, his deal was, you know, the first appearance of a thing is not in the world. It's in the mind. It's in the thought form, right? Like the first table, you know, this is Plato. Other people can argue this easily, but Plato said the first table wasn't a table, it was the thought of a table, right? So as you go forth to like make that table, or you go forth to make anything, you are telling stories, and you're manifesting forms from your mind into the world. And the more that other people start to tell the same story, the more that story becomes reality. And when you have thousands of years and billions of people telling really, in some ways, similar stories, like we have different cultures, we have different religions, in some ways, our world that we live in it's not that diverse, honestly. You know, maybe in some ways with a global economy at this point in time, that's more so than ever before, right? But these are all stories that we're telling, like the way the economy works, the global economy works, the way global power works, are all stories that we're telling. Absolutely. And we could tell a different story and it would be different. But I can't personally tell a story and wake up in a different world in that regard, right? So that structure, all of those structures are being held in place by billions of people saying that they have to be there, right? And I mean, economics, money is imaginary, but it's not, is it? Because you'll freeze to death, you know, right? I mean, it's not a game, even though it absolutely is a game. And it absolutely is just a story we're telling, right? And we could change it, but I can't change it by myself. So I think when it comes to like these stories that we're telling, we're forcing these various kinds of forms to continue existing. I was just like, I mean, I was sitting in my car outside the grocery store kind of like the other day, just kind of like, I get myself ready to go inside, you know, I just kind of do like, I'm going to have really great interactions and everybody's going to be really helpful. And like, I just kind of do that thing, right? So I'm telling the story of how it's going to go in the grocery. I don't want to have a problem in the grocery store. You know what I'm saying?
I wish everybody. Yeah.
Right. So I'm setting my intentions about what's going to happen in the grocery store, right up to like only the most helpful people are going to even notice I'm there. You know what I mean? Like that kind of thing. And I just take it doesn't take long to do that. So, but I was sitting there, but I was taking a little extra long because the other day, because I knew I was a little moody. So it couldn't just be my kind of like, I'm going to have a really great time at the grocery store and it's all going to go really great. It had to be a little bit more like, and you're going to stay cool. Okay. Like, all right, and keep yourself together. You're not going to cry because you can't find the wasabi nuts or whatever, you know. Right. Keep yourself together. So it was taking me a little bit longer, but I had kind of a moment while I was doing it, just kind of breathing and doing my thing. And I just kind of looked out over the parking lot and all the like gleaming cars in the parking lot. And I just had this moment where I'm like, and yet it's all a dream. It's
Wow.
all a dream. You know, one of those cars could run me over and end this day and everyone to follow it, right? Yet it's all a dream. These cars are a dream. The metal that makes them is a dream. It's all a dream, you know? And then I was like, okay, I'm good. And I went in and I had a great time at the grocery store. I really did have a great time too. And that happens a lot. So, you know, there's a lot of storytelling that's happening at any one time. And I'm even just, you know, like with, you know, like it's like going back to the table, like tables are solid, you know, you set your lunch on it, you can pound your fist on it, the judge hits the gavel, you know, these are big, this is a big deal, but the table itself isn't solid. It's made of moving atoms, you know? Oh, right. And one other thing I like to talk about too, particularly in my writing classes, I'll bring this up. I'm like, don't forget that what you see with your eyes, your mind is filling in the blanks with some enormous percentage of that. You don't actually see what you think you're seeing. Your mind, you know, it's something like 90% of what you visually see with your eyes is a story that your mind is telling you. Like visually, we don't actually pick up that much information. We tell ourselves a story. Oh, I got the chills. We tell ourselves a story, and that's what we're looking at. So
you're really getting somewhere really cool right now. I'm liking where you're headed. That's amazing. Do you and you also, you know, you talked about that table and how it isn't real. But when you hit it, you know, it does damage, right? If you smack your shin upon the table, it does damage. And I'm thinking about mean things people say or, you know, emotions and things. Those are also, you know, they're in motion. They're not tangible, real things, but yet they are, and they can do damage. So like, really, what is the difference between a table and an ill intention, you know, or a bad experience or whatever? And so right. that makes one wonder, well, what exactly, you know, Misha's here again. She's probably the influencer with my thought process about consciousness now, and that's now making me think about. So, if we all have our own stories, we're all telling ourselves different things. How is it that we find ourselves in the same reality that we agree upon somehow?
Right. Well, I mean, that's the thing with the overarching stories, the big stories. Like I like to use money as a real example, but the story we tell ourselves about money or the stories we tell ourselves about government, you know, these stories, there's so many people telling them that you can't, we're born into that story and told that this all makes sense. It makes sense. Here's, you know, you're gonna have a bank account and you got to get a job and like, you know, you're gonna have a boss, which actually is kind of a weird thing if you think about it. You know, these right, like adults telling other adults what to do for money. It's weird. Well,
all those constructs you just mentioned are real but weird. Yeah.
Right. Contracts. That's the way to put it. That's what they are. So they are. And so, you know, you're told, you know, but we're told that from everyone around us as we're growing up, and we're put into school, you know, which is this other structure we made up where they literally tell you made up things, you know, right? You know, and so even though we're all individuals living these different stories, when it comes to these big structures like this, we're not. We're all telling the same story to a certain degree. And I think that's what keeps it in place. And it makes for a very solid reality that you can't just, you know, I mean, if they come and they're like, you know, we're taking you to prison, I can't just say, you know what, that's not in my story. I'm just not.
Right.
You know, I didn't have that on my calendar today. You know, I can't make it go away just because I think it's a shitty story.
Interesting. It's true.
Right. But there are other things I can, like the story I tell about going into the grocery store, you know, the story that I tell just even before I take a long, you know, a trip anywhere. I'm like, I'm going to get where I'm going safely, efficiently, and effectively. You know, and like I tell that story. These are things I can, you know, and every morning, you know, when I wake up, I'm like, I'm going to have a really great day with my dog. And like, I live behind my mom's house when I have my own little place behind her place when I'm in Missouri. And I'm like, you know, I'm going to have a great morning with my mom. You know, it's not, you know, like all these things are going to be all of these things are going to go really well. And I can tell those stories. I can tell, I can tell a story about, about the interaction that you and I are going to have. Like, I do have that control. And then I do think that when you get in groups of people, and if you can kind of all agree upon telling a certain story, you can create that reality. I'm big on like temporary zones for people, like groups of people, like even like you get like, if everybody's gonna get together and they're gonna like make a nonprofit like under the auspices of capitalism and all these things we're still doing. Look, there's going to be tons of infighting. You're going to need to bring a board on. They're going to want to tell you what to do. There's going to be taxes. Everybody's going to disagree. You're all probably going to hate each other by the end. Like, it's going to be kind of a nightmare, right? If you try to I don't want to discourage anyone from making a nonprofit, but that's kind of how things go when you get with a group of people and you're like, we're going to do this forever, and then, but if you get together in a, like a temporary autonomous, like zone kind of way, you build an info shop and then you walk away and you let the next kind of group of people come in and run it for a while. And then there's people are coming and going and there's no one's really like there to then you can keep using the same spaces, but that you build over time, but it's not you've gone on and you look back and you're like, oh, what are y'all doing with that space now? Or what are you all doing with that parade now? Like I helped start that, but that's your thing now. And like, how did it grow? How did it build as these temporary autonomous people came and went over a period of time, which I think is a really cool and interesting way to do things. And I think the world would be a much better place in terms of our big stories if we looked at the world like that a little bit more. Like, I can start something and then honestly just let it go and let you do, what you will with it. And I think that's a story we can stop telling ourselves, that we have to control everything, I guess. Yeah, I mean, I can riff on this forever for sure. So
oh yeah. It's worthwhile too. I mean, we could totally spend a whole, show talking about just that. And, it's like something that's constantly fresh and in motion. Absolutely. It's alive. It's beyond the moment. It's beyond our direction and stuff. It's bigger.
Yes. It's bigger than
funny.
us. Yeah.
Oh, no. Go ahead, please.
Oh, that was it. It's bigger than us.
It's bigger. Now you've made me think of this practice, and I don't know if anyone's ever done it before, but now I'm like wondering about, okay, imagine a group of people who wanted to create a reality. Maybe people do this. Maybe I'm just being stupid. But imagine, if you will, a group of people who wish to create a certain reality. And in order to create this, they got together and they wrote a play about how they wanted it to look, and then they performed that play, for each other, not necessarily for an audience, but they performed that play, and they did that again and again and again and again. Do you think that becomes then something that can create that sort of a reality? Or do you think that that's just a story within another story and it's just a diversion or something?
Yeah, well, have you ever done theater? Have you ever been like,
yeah.
Okay. So
well, yeah, I shouldn't say that.
I'm sorry.
I've done my share, yeah.
Okay. So you kind of know that like what really winds up happening, like if you're on I'm not an actor, but I have been part of a play series before, like I have been an actor on a stage that did a run of a play, right? And so what starts happening is, to the actors, we start becoming our characters and we start interacting with each other like we're in the play, and our life starts to reflect the play. And like, and I know I had a friend who was like, she was in a production of Sweeney Todd, and she was like, what? People just need to watch the damn movie. Nobody should ever have to perform that play again, I
was just imagining what that would do to you, being a part of that play. Wow, that would work on your world in such weird ways.
That's what she said. She was like, honestly, they have a movie now. Just quit. Stop. No more Sweeney Todd. It's ruining people's lives, So yeah, I guess what you're saying, I guess I've experienced it, but I hadn't really thought about it in the way that you're talking about it. But
yeah, like an intentional practice, like not just being
yeah.
cast in a show, and like, I mean, that does happen. But so
Right.
what if that was intentionally done? You know, as a group, you were like, yeah, this show is what we want to embody in our world. And so, I mean, people do that as LARPers and stuff, but it's different than what I'm saying.
Yeah, I know. LARPing's interesting. I just like, it's oftentimes so not positive. That's the, you know, I mean, but you know, it could be. Yeah, I mean, years ago, there was somebody who like said to me, they said, I live every day as if the world's, that the entire world is in a conspiracy to deliver beautiful things to me. And I never forgot that, because then later I went on to write, you know, a story that was make beautiful things. And like, that was kind of the idea behind it, was like become part of the conspiracy to like make beautiful things, meaning like not just for yourself, not just so that like other people can be like, oh wow, that's cool, you know, like where can I follow you, like and click, like and click, like and click, you know, but where it's like, no, I made this to support you in having a beautiful life. Like what if we did that, you know? Right? Yes.
That's wonderful.
Right.
That's a beautiful spirit.
And we could all do it. You know, and there's that storytelling that you're talking about. Like we can all get in this conspiracy to give one another a very beautiful life. And, you know, I mean, we're in a place in the world to start that conspiracy, but you know what? We might as well.
Oh no, it might be in just the right spot. You never know.
You might be right. People might finally be ready. Like you had enough.
You know, I think about, okay, I'm going to take kind of a weird left turn here. And it's based on what we've been talking about, but I'm going to go flat earth for a second. And I'm not a flat earther, but I am, what I find interesting about that whole thing, I'm also not a spherical earther, but what I find interesting about that whole thing is the first time I heard about it, I thought that was the most ridiculous thing I'd ever heard. And it was interesting how to watch emotions rise up within me, just hearing that concept. And after, you know, looking into things and actually hearing people talk about things and everything, I started to realize that whether it is or it isn't, it's still a story that we've been told since childhood and just accepted, and that we will defend, even if we don't understand that heliocentric model, we're going to defend it tooth and nail, or most people will, because it's a belief that's almost so intrinsic that it's a part of us in some way. And so to separate yourself from those kinds of lessons is an interesting practice, and to be able to go, you know, maybe that thought isn't reality. Maybe that's just something I was told and I've believed. And so many things are true in that way.
Oh yeah, that's absolutely, yeah, that's it. Exactly. Wow.
I still find it interesting how, and also you see it a lot with how do I say this? With the pandemic that's going on, I guess, around us, and if people have different ideas about that, how interesting, how immediately it just ires people, or it really brings up things, and sometimes you don't even know why, but you find yourself in this battle defending things and stuff, and you know,
right.
I don't know. I think it's just fascinating to be able to step back from that. And
I mean, the flat earth was like, that's a great example, because I don't know if I was exactly angry with it when I heard it, but I've had that experience with other things where I was just like, oh, don't even, like, that makes me so angry just to hear you say it. I've definitely had that experience, not so much with flat earth, but I did have people around me who were like, no, you know, I've been looking into this flat earth thing. And I was like, oh God. But what wound up happening though, because I care about them and I listen to them, is exactly what you said. I'm like, well, you know, technically I have never been in a spaceship. I think I know this, but I don't really at all. Like, I have to take someone else's word for it, you know, which is not to say that then I suddenly believed in flat earth. But I had a similar experience to you, where it was like, it did bring me to the realization that something I feel confidently that I absolutely 100% do know. I don't know it with my own eyes. I don't know it from my own experience. And so I did have that experience with that also. So like, I think that's a really good example. Yeah.
Interesting. That's always a touchy subject to broach. That's fascinating. I like to hear that you have that perspective. You seem to take that about everything, though. In my impression of you, you seem to really sit back and kind of go, okay, what's this really about? And I really appreciate that perspective. That's really cool.
It's more fun that way, isn't it? Because I listen to people talk about the Kubrick moon landing, stuff. And I'm like, what you're saying is actually pretty interesting. And then I'm like, I don't think I believe that exactly, but it's pretty interesting. And then somebody else, they said to me, they're like, well, I absolutely believe the moon landing was faked, but not for the reason all those other people are saying. I think they did it so Russia wouldn't hit us with a nuclear bomb. And I was like, oh, well, maybe that, you know what I mean? So by kind of opening my mind to being like, well, this is just interesting, I'm learning things. Then somebody said something to me that I was like, you know what? That guy over there could be totally right for all I know. So yeah, so you're right. I hope I do, Chandler. I mean, sometimes I think I can be a little bit like, no, no, this is how things are.
Sure. I mean, that's natural. We all can be. And I don't know. Yeah. I mean, it can't all be chaos and stuff, but I noticed the people who open themselves to possibility and who are also disciplined in their approach to knowledge, like you are. I mean, I don't know if you consider yourself an academic, but obviously you're well educated and you're procedural in your approach to things, it seems. And I mean, that seems to, if you can let go of that, of holding on too tightly to that and dip your toe into the woo a little bit, like you seem to do, I think it creates, you can go to a depth that other people just can't even fathom. No pun intended.
I think you might be right. And it was it's been a relief over the years to let go in that way. Like I said, when I was putting up that tarot card was jumping off a cliff. And so kind of let go of feeling like I needed to hold on to the respect of that world in some way. Cause I was just well, for what? Really? I mean, none of you are calling me to ask me my opinion about anything. I can get that anywhere, that's you want to talk about something that's cheap, but I do consider myself, academic's not really the right word because I'm not in an academy, but I do consider myself to be a scholar in that way. And I continue that. I do a podcast called Secret Antenna that depending on, which I usually say is a podcast about political history, which is really conspiracy. I mean, that's what political history is it's conspiracy, right?
Well, conspiracy is what, a group of people coming together to create something. I forget what the actual definition is, but it's something.
Yeah. I mean, people are conspiring all the time, and if to be charged with conspiracy, in a court, it's one of the easiest things you can be charged with. They can find you to be a conspirator. It's so easy. But yeah, so there's nothing, really to it. So you can't say that the Bush family is not conspiring. You can't say that. Trust me, that's literally their job in the world, So,
exactly.
It's their job. And so so I say political history, which is always kind of a chuckle to me because I'm conspiracy. But we don't go off the cuff. It's myself and my collaborator, Callie, and we don't go off the cuff. Our work is reputably, whatever that means. Even if I might slide away from that, but I'll tell you in the podcast, so everything's got a bibliography, and I've read the books, and I can even show you my George books sitting around here with 200 marks in where I've marked all the pages. I can tell you what page I found it on in what book, right? So, and I love that. I love being able to do that, and I love being able to put that work out there with this person who also does that with me. So it really encompasses both sides of me in this way, is that I like to have that work like that. And I feel it's a service in this way too. I'm look, everything that you everything that you kind of see are the dots that, you know, feel are kind of the dots you connect in your own mind. Like, I'll tell you what, you're right. I got the page numbers for you. So I like being able to do that also. So yeah. So, yeah. So there is a depth there. Absolutely. Cause I'm also, you know, cause we're also going to do George Bush's, astrology chart, you know, and we're going to talk about that.
Wow.
Right. So we do these, like, it's this Bush family deep dive, but there's plenty of woo. I mean, and besides that, those people, look, I'm going to wind up talking about for 5 hours on a podcast at some point in time, probably, you know, 2 different women, like, so you can listen to it, but trust me.
I will. I'll just get the end.
Those people were into some woo. Okay.
From what little I know, I've heard that. Yeah.
It's crazy shit. It is. So.
You know, and when you think about that, it's like, oh man, I mean, the topic of history, we really could, I hope you come back again too, Michelle. I can already tell that we could go down so many rabbit holes too. Mm-hmm. And when you think about history and things and like who was into woo and what was what and things, and it seems like a lot of people, what am I saying? In the earlier parts of in the early history of America, it seems like a lot of people were really into the woo in their own ways, whether it's, you know, Masonic things and well, anyway, it seems to have been pretty formative for our culture, and it seems to underlie a lot of what is around us, and it's not immediately obvious, I think, to a lot of people, but I mean, it's definitely a part of things. Yeah.
I mean, for sure. I mean, look, we're still like doing our philosophy, religion, politics, like all of that, we're still doing that based in like a time period when, like, you know, people didn't leave, they didn't go farther than 20 or 40 miles from where they were born ever in their life. And they didn't know much about people who did. I mean, you know, are people who were in other places. I mean, you know, there's exceptions to this. You know, of course, you're the knights, you know, they'd ride out, you know, they're in the tarot deck, they'd ride out and maybe they'd come back, maybe they wouldn't. But you wouldn't necessarily even know what happened. So we're still basing, our modern world is still entirely based on people who made up stories about how things worked, you know, like we're still based on like pre-science concepts in the way that we put the whole world together as it is. So yeah, there's lots of woo going on, you know. I mean, I don't know, there's lots of woo going on, and definitely, and even in like these modern like families, powerful families. I mean, you're talking about very superstitious people in a lot of ways, you know. So yes, I think there's lots of superstition, lots of storytelling. I mean, you know, I have a friend who's she wound up she's been quarantined in I mean, her family's there, but she's been quarantined in Zambia for like 8 months or something. And wow. So she was telling me, you know, they disappear political dissidents down there, you know, similarly to anywhere else. They do it in America. They, you know, it's just something that's done, right?
Yeah.
So what she said that I think is interesting is she said, people still practice so much magic here that you have the government. This story, it's kind of terrible and kind of funny, but like the government, you know, they come and they capture the dissidents or whatever. But what they tell the people is they're like, well, you know, the witches are releasing gas and that's what's happening to people, but we can't catch them because after they do it, they turn back into cats.
Wow.
Like that's happening right now. Like people, the Zambian government is telling people that witches are disappearing people and then turning into cats. So like, what are you going to do? You know, wow. So like, anyway, like, right. Today, 2020, that's like a real thing that's happening.
Wow. I mean, I am surprised and not at the same time.
Right. Right.
And it only makes sense that, you know, people who are in control and things would take a look at anything that could give them an advantage. What is the saying that millionaires don't have astrologers, but billionaires do? You know,
I love that.
It seems to be so true, right? And right. The weirder, like there seems to be this middle ground where things are kind of normie, and then like below, there's the pagan commoners and things, and then there's the upper class with their own woo, and there seems to be this gradient, and then once you break through that, then it just gets all the more weird as it is down here.
Yes. And I mean, I love that, Sharon, because honestly, I'm like, I think about this every time. I'm like, that's why we keep a middle class. And those are the people who like, they're the pillars of society, right? And they're the ones who are like keeping the institutions together. They're the people who most become their jobs in a way and become really invested in not only like doing what they do, but like if you're, but if you say anything about their profession in general, they're like, I'll tell you something. And it's like, like you kind of are too much your job, right? And they have a lot to lose. And they're the most, like you said, they're the most like normative kind of people. And they're the barrier between the, the down here and the up here that are totally practicing these things. I mean, that is so real. Paul Fussell even like wrote a book on like the class system, and like he talked about this. He's like, the belief system of the bottom out of sight and the top out of sight are incredibly similar. And so like, yeah, you hit it totally. I couldn't agree with that more. And that's that barrier in the middle that's really going to tell that story very strong. The story that says it cannot be any other way. Are those people in the middle, and they have less experience with woo than any of the other people. It's true. That I hadn't really thought of it exactly like that. So right now it's true.
Wow.
Dang. Right?
I want to just share a quick little anecdote because it's made me think about something in my own experience that's been a big part of my world that I've wondered about a lot. And so martial arts has always been a huge part of my world. And at one point I was involved with a federation that, so the Grandmaster was in Japan. He was a Japanese guy. And there was an American sort of a liaison who was also sort of a Grandmaster here in the States. And so he was like the go-between between the students and the schools and the Grandmaster, right? And he knew the Grandmaster well. He had been a student with him. But he was an American, like a military American from Vietnam. And he was like a really practical kind of guy. And he was extremely talented and stuff, and was big on meditation. But whenever the subject of woo came up, and there's a lot of magical tradition in the martial arts that I was into, he would dismiss it and just completely be like, that's, we're not here to discuss those things. We're here to, do our combat. And the Grandmaster would come over and he would start to talk about things, and he would go off, and suddenly he'd be talking about how the martial arts originally came from aliens, and that his family crest believes in like a 10th planet and all this. He starts to go into some cool stuff, and I'm like, tell me more. And immediately, the American teacher's like, cut him off, and they just kind of, end the thing and kind of change the subject and stuff. And it's always like, why was he so protective about that? And it makes sense because he had to sort of make that order of like, no, this is the way we do the martial arts and things, and this is what it's about. And I can see that protective thing, whether or not he was believing it. And I find that fascinating because that can be a deterrent to getting to the truth sometimes.
Absolutely. I mean, makes you wonder. That's a good example, though. That's perfect. Like he was very much like middle class establishment kind of, type thing. Yeah, I get it. That's interesting. I, for one, love diving into the woo. And so, like, when did you first what was your first experience with woo-ness? Yeah. I was a kid, like I had my mom was a little woo. She did, she was an atheist. She considered herself an atheist, but she just didn't like religion. She felt very harmed by it herself and didn't want me to be raised with religion. So she's like, we're atheists. But then she always, she's like looking for auras and doing stuff like that. And so she that gray area right between that we were just talking about. Yeah. she eliminated that middle ground. She eliminated the establishment. Totally. So but before I was born, she did automatic writing. And it's interesting because my name came up in it, and like that's not my father wound up naming me kind of like 11th hour like style, you know. That's not what she was going to name me. She never would have thought of Michelle. And so like I knew that like kind of all along growing up, because she didn't even like, she was looking through the notebooks years later to like throw them away, and she came across like my name written across a page like 3 years before I was born, when it wasn't a name that she was going to give me. You know, it wasn't even planning on having me. You know what I mean? And so I knew that all along growing up. So there was that aspect. My grandmother's house was pretty haunted, was true. I think my very first, though, really, my first personal experience, though, went like this. My grandmother, who lived in the haunted house, was coming to stay at our house with me and my mom, and my father wasn't there at the time. And she was coming, and I loved it when she came, because she would come sleep in my bed, and I would get to sleep in the living room, which meant I kind of got to stay up a little later and watch a little more TV, and I got to get my Snoopy sleeping bag, right? It was just like good kid shit, right? You're like, ooh, I was up till 9, and like, you know, I slept on the floor like I was camping, you know, good stuff, right? So I loved it when she, plus then I would wake up and my grandmother would be there, and I loved my grandmother. And so anyway, that's how I was always really excited. And she came, and that night, and like it's very memorable, because that night when she was like getting ready to go to bed, I threw a complete temper tantrum, and I was like, no, she can't sleep in my bed. And my mother was like, what? You know? And I was like, I just went on, like I wouldn't let up. I was like, no. And I was having this tantrum, and it was just like, she's like, what is happening? You know, because like this was so not like me at all to act like that about anything. And plus, like, I loved this when this would happen. This was one of my favorite like kid type things to happen, right? But I was throwing this, and I can remember my mother kind of grabbing my shoulder and like, you know, kind of sticking her nails in my, you know, like, excuse me, you know, kind of style. And I was like, no. And I threw this tantrum, right? And so finally my grandmother, you know, in traditional like granny style, was like, oh, okay, well, no, that's fine. No, it's fine. Yeah, she wants her bed. Let her have her bed. It's fine with me. I'll sleep on the couch. That's fine. No, it's fine. Right? Good old granny, right?
Good old granny.
So what winds up happening then is I had this old bed, pretty bed, but it was old, heavy oak wood bed, and it was old. I think it had actually belonged to my mother when she was young. And what happened in the middle of the night then is I'm in the bed, and I heard, I'm awakened because I heard the bed breaking, and I heard the bed cracking.
Bed breaking?
Yeah. And I jumped up and like ran across the room because I thought a monster was coming, you know, right? And flipped on the light. And when, you know, and like everybody came, you know, into the room, my mother and my grandmother, and I feel like somebody else was there, but it wasn't my father. It might've been another aunt. But they all came into the room, and we're standing there looking at this bed. And what had happened was the headboard went forward and the mattress went down under the headboard like this. And my mother's hand was shaking, and she put her hand on my shoulder and she said, Michelle, your grandmother's head would have been right there.
Wow.
Wow. Right.
I mean, that was like, it took you completely out of character. It was, you wouldn't describe it as a premonition necessarily.
No.
I guess.
No. I mean, I think that like something came through me and was just like, sorry, you know, I hope you don't get grounded, but like, you're going to need to be a little bitch right now. And so like, I kind of think that that's what happened. Like, it wasn't me. It was something that came that's like, look, you'll thank me later, you know, but we're going to need you to just act like this. And so I think something just kind of got in and saved my grandmother through that behavior in me.
Well, that's fascinating because that kind of has a tie to the sort of who you're talking about with your name. I mean,
you're right. It does.
It doesn't seem like it's a matter of detecting an entity or something like that. But how would you describe that? What is that? Where does that come from? The voice.
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, what?
I'm sorry, just the thing that made your mom go like this, and to you, and what that whole thing.
Yeah,
it wasn't an entity that was doing that, right? So what was going on there? Do you think?
I don't know. It might have been an entity. Like, I'm not really saying that it isn't. Like, I mean, I'm very aware of myself as a portal. Like, I don't live a life where I think that things can't get in here. You know what I mean? Like, I take steps to be protective about that. And like, I'm not sure that it wasn't, because it wasn't me. I did not act like that. Me having a temper tantrum, like, to my mother and my grandmother. No. I mean, it just, whatever, especially my mom, anything my mom said, I was just like, okay. Like, I never talked back to my mother. I never did that stuff. I mean, when I was a teenager, but when I was a little kid, I didn't.
Sure. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's not just like a behavior issue or something like that. That's something from beyond, I think.
Right.
So, do you think that what was your next, I guess, experience then? Did it become a lifetime of sort of the woo being sort of an underlying presence in your world, or
yeah. Yeah, I mean, it definitely was an underlying presence. And I mean, I had other experiences. That one was really pronounced. So that's the one, and it was really the first really pronounced one. But certainly as an underlying like aspect to life. Like, I always had an understanding that there was something else, even though I was being raised atheist. I mean, not really. So yeah, I mean, and just other kind of minor experiences then growing up, and then not so much until later in my adult life. Like, I really shut it down, especially because I wanted to go be, I wanted to be an academic. I wanted to like get my briefcase and like whatever, my button-up shirt, and like do my thing. That's kind of where I wanted my life to go. And so like I didn't want to get into all that.
Serious and stuff for a minute.
Yeah, and when my mom, and something my mother too, she always said, don't mess with a Ouija board, which I don't to this day. I'm like, no, my mom won't let me play with those. But what she had said is, she was like, look, Michelle, you don't know what any of this is. When you start playing around with this stuff, you don't know who you're talking to or what you're talking to. That's why she had quit doing automatic writing. So she's like, you don't know what any of this is. And she's like, in all honesty, Michelle, they can't help you with anything here. Honestly, like, you're on your own here and you have to make your own choices. They can't really tell you what to do or how to live or where to go. So why mess with it? And I was like, okay. And I took that, and I mean, I don't think that's entirely wrong, but I also think that I think that they're great support. And I think that they underlie, like, my grandmother's with me all the time. I have guides that are with me all the time. Just like lots of things, like nature spirits are with me all the time, in particular birds. I have like really kind of incredible experiences with birds. And so it's like, but there's a spirit of the bird that's with me a lot. The spirit of the spider that's with me a lot. Like, I have things like that, they buoy me and they help me, kind of go the right direction in certain ways, right? Like, I live like that. So it isn't so much that I get information. It's not, it's not like that. It's like, it's just these kind of elements that are with me. If that explains it.
Yeah, I dig that. Do you think that, was a conscious, like, did you collect those, like the bird spirits and those things consciously, or did they kind of just come to you?
Well, when it comes to like these nature, type things, because I've got the horse and the bee and the dog, anything that kind of like that I've had these interactions with, so like become part of that. Like, I mean, I think my grandmother, let me put it like this. I'm pretty sure my grandmother was a root worker and she taught me things, but we didn't talk like that. And also she was like, my mother was the split from this generation that I think just did a lot of root work and did a lot of magic. My grandmother would plant things under the moon and she did this floor washes and stuff. And when I talked, right, but like that was like, she didn't talk about that as magical, which obviously it was, right? But there was this split, like, oh, that's the old world. We don't do that. Like all that stuff, that's silly country people stuff. And like, we don't act like that. We're all going to get like sophisticated and middle class, I guess, let's get middle class about this situation. Right.
Yeah.
So I come from that type of background, even though it was underspoken, right? So, whereas like you kind of go to a metaphysical shop and it's like, you can pick your animal totem or whatever. Fine. I'm not against anybody here. But it's just like, I don't think you can. Like, I think that like you have to have interactions, and so it's like I got kicked by a horse at one point when I was a kid. So the horse is with me, and
That's
like
I got kicked by a horse.
I did. I mean, like I was back far enough, that it just kind of got me here, and I got kind of lucky, right? But that,
Wow.
right? I know, right? So I have that horse is there. At one point in time, I love dogs, but I have been bitten by a dog, so there's that. I got stung by a bunch of bees one time, made my leg swell up. So I got the bee in there, I was hospitalized by a spider bite at one point in time, and when it comes to the birds, like birds literally just fly in my house a lot. But then too, I have these experiences also with like, I find like almost anytime I look over and I see a dead bird, I'm like, it's going to be warm because I'm supposed to bury it. Okay.
Oh.
Like, right. And so, right. And so I'm like, damn it, hang on. I gotta bury this damn bird. So, right. So that's the type of, so I've never been attacked by a bird. But those are the type of experiences. They come to live with me. That, or they want to live with me in some ways. And then, I perform death rituals for them and, that sort of thing. So the bird's there with me. So like any animal that I would consider to be like with me in spirit are all animals that I feel I've had this interaction with, which often is a negative interaction, but that's not really the point. That's not the point. It's that when that, when that animal makes this like contact with you in these ways, they become part of you. Their spirit becomes part of you in that way. I'm sure that goes back into some tradition that I'm not strictly aware of off the top of my head, but that's a knowledge that I feel like I just have.
Oh my gosh, I can identify with that. And I love what Keith just said. He's like, I love the idea of conflict with an animal breeds a deep talismanic connection. I think that's so true. I love the idea of our connections with animals and everything, but especially when it's something like that, like getting kicked by the horse. I mean, do you keep a lucky horseshoe around now, or?
Oh, actually, that's interesting. I don't. I mean, I'm probably one of those people that would be like, if you don't walk them on asphalt, they don't need shoes. But whatever. Like which may not be entirely. Horses are hard to take care of. I don't take that lightly.
I've had little experience with horses, a couple of major ones, but only very few.
Met horses?
Yeah. I've only met horses a couple of times, and both those times have been enormously impactful in my world for various reasons. But I don't know shit about horses. It must be a whole other world.
Yeah, I love to ride, all that, even though I'm like, oh, saddling them up, whatever. But I love horses for sure. So I don't have necessarily like a horse talisman that I keep. But you'll note horses, and especially the sound of horses running will come up in my stories and my poetry a lot. And I have very much of like this visualization, that's always back here of this horse that's with me. And so like it's more of that style. And I have this animal spirit deck that Kim Cran's made. Beautiful artwork. And like almost all I turn that horse over just again and again and again and again. Sometimes I'm like, is the horse the only card in this deck? So it's that kind of energy that goes along with that.
Wow. The horse is running. Okay, I've got to share this with you. So one of my few experiences with horses was, oh man, layers of story, but cut to the chase. Probably 2 years ago, something like that, and I had just undergone a major a Kundalini awakening and a huge change in my life where everything changed and got rocked. And so anyway, the last things I had left in my world were my 2 pet cats, and they had gone missing. And so anyway, I was wandering around this place where I was living. It was an unfamiliar place, but it was on a farm, and nearby there were some horses. And as I was posting signs looking for my cat, I looked over in this yard, and 2 white horses were at the other side of the yard. And I just started crying, and one of the horses looked over at me, far away, looked over at me and just started running at me, runs right up to the fence and just looks at me in the eye. And I was just like, I just looked at him, and he just like let me pet him and stuff. And then his partner came running up and did the same thing. And I was just like, wow, these horses are incredible creatures. And shortly after, I enrolled in a horse therapy program to see how that would be. And I had that same experience, is that at least one horse would just run right up to me every time I'd be there. And the person was just like, I've never seen a horse do that.
You're like, oh, they do it to me every time. That's amazing. Like I can feel it when you talk about it. I can feel it in my heart. Nice. So amazing. Wow. So you've got, okay. See, I think that, that's horse spirit with you all the time, for sure. Like that's an interaction with that horse, like when you were going through that point, that low point, that horse like ran over there to buoy you up, to hold you up, to keep you, in yourself and in place in this world, because we do belong here despite it all. We all belong here, and animals and something like that. That's that horse saying, oh, Chander, you belong here though. No matter how it feels right now, you belong. Amazing. I love that story.
Thank you. I'm feeling you too. And I love that about animals. I think that they really, for me, I didn't grow up with animals, unfortunately, but I've always loved them. And there's something about them that just, certain animals definitely, especially cats, just immediately connect with me. And there's that moment, when you're with an animal and you just, I don't know, I get transported to another realm within this realm, sort of. It's just such a place of peace and beyond understanding. It's just like value in being here, like you were just saying.
Yep. Whether we get it or we don't.
Ever dream about your animal or any animal?
What's that?
Do you dream about animals?
Oh yeah, definitely. My dogs are in my dreams a lot, past, present, probably future too, now that I'm thinking of it. Birds, always. And one of the, almost always in my dreams. And like something too that like I tell people that I work with, my clients that I work with is I'm like, get on whatever, the computer, find yourself an app or something where there's birds singing, because that's this primal thing, like our way back in like our brains. That's how we knew when things were okay. The birds were singing, right? And so like that, and like they would be quiet when predators were coming, or they would sing different, like they would be quiet during different times, or they would leave, if a storm was coming, a hurricane was coming, old-timey people knew that because there were no birds.
Yeah.
Right. So when the birds are singing, we know that we're safe. And so, so that definitely comes up in my dreams a lot. Birds singing, or just birds in general. So yeah, lots of animals in my dream, for better and worse, sometimes, but like, I don't scare easily. And like, so like, I'm not afraid of spiders, even though, like I said, I've been hospitalized by one. I love one. I left town for like a couple weeks this summer. And when I came back, it was so great. This big wolf spider had made a home on my desk. It was really funny because she had built her web in across like bottles of glitter and nail polish.
That's awesome.
It was so awesome. And I came back and she was like moved into my desk. And so I was like, oh, hey. And I figured she'd move, because I was going to be right there. Sometimes I was even kind of bumping stuff when I would move my computer back and be like, oh, I'm sorry. She didn't. She stayed for 2 weeks, and she lives this huge spider that sometimes I was like, am I just crazy? Am I a crazy person? Like maybe is that because I'm all like, hey, good morning. And then every once in a while I'd have this little doubt of like, is something really just wrong with you, Michelle? But then I was like, no. This wolf spider lives here because she lives. I think
just like you, for sure. It's home now.
Right. And so, and the thing is that, she was there for like, I don't know exactly how long wolf spiders live, but she stayed for 2 weeks. And then one morning I woke up and she was gone, and I never saw her again. And I don't know where she went. And I don't know what happened, because I kind of thought she would just die in the web, but she didn't, and she left. So, and there were no eggs, and I don't know, she was just gone. And I was like, it took me like the whole day to be like, well, okay, I guess she's not just out running errands. Like, I guess she's gone, and it was a little sad, but it was super cool to live with a wolf spider for 2 weeks. So, yeah,
that's really cool.
Yeah, right. I thought so. I mean, most of the time I thought so, except every once in a while I'd be like, if anybody else saw this.
Yeah, that some people think it's crazy to talk to your dogs and cats or whatever, but
you know what? You're right. And they know more words than a baby, okay? You not talk to your baby because it doesn't know words, right?
Right. That's right. Besides, I am absolutely certain that at least in some cases, animals totally understand what we're saying.
My dog understands big concepts. She really does. Yeah. She really
like what?
Well, we travel a lot. And so like she gets when she sees my keys or she sees me packing up, she'll come and she'll get by me and she'll put her paw like on my hand and look me in the eyes. And I'll be like, well, tomorrow we're going to go to this place and, we're going to be gone like this amount of time and you and me are both going, and like we have that. One of my friends laughs about it. He's like, oh, let me get out of here while you all have your adult conversation. Because I give her the long term on it, So she understands really big concepts about traveling at this point in time because we do it a lot. And when I start packing up, she's like, what's happening? And like, I got to tell her a story, because she knows like when I pack up, like I could be gone a couple of days, or a week, because she almost always goes with me, but we could be gone a couple of days. We could be gone for months, like she's done the whole loop of the United States with me, like 13,000 miles or whatever. Right. Cool. Yeah, totally cool, right? She's been to she's driven through almost every state in the continental US, right? So she's like, where are you going? Right? She's like, this is not a joke. When I see the bags getting packed, what's happening? Am I going? So it's big concept.
Give me a lowdown, let's have a talk.
Yeah. Yeah. Don't dumb it down. Tell me all of it. And she'll be satisfied. She knows what I'm telling. She knows what I'm saying. She totally knows. Because I'll say, like, we're going to go see your Uncle David and your Uncle Jesse. And she's like, she knows who I'm talking about. Right. Or especially other dogs' names. I'll be like, we're going down to New Orleans, see your friend Coley. She's like, oh yeah. You know, she's like,
oh yeah.
Yeah.
Got her friend.
Yeah.
Awesome. What kind of dog is Friday?
She's looking at me right now. She's like, what are you doing? What are you telling people about me? She's a mix. I found little baby. She was 3.5 pounds, and I found her under your favorite story Friday. I found her under an abandoned house, little bitty baby, and I thought she was a full bred. I found her under an abandoned house, and she was 3.5 pounds. She was only about 8 weeks old. Her ears are totally sticking up. She loves this story. I tell it a lot. She loves it. This is how we've met, you know. And I actually thought she was a full-bred min pin when I found her. But now when she grew up, and I would say she's Dachshund, Chihuahua, and min pin. That's what I would put. That's what I would pick this.
The most affectionate dog in the universe, probably, right?
She is. She's so sweet. She's the master of cuddling. Like sometimes she hovers and I'll be like, what are you doing, you little freak? And then she'll, I talk normal to her. And then she'll like drop in like somewhere, like perfectly like launch her body, like so that like my hand is on her stomach. And I'm like, how do you even do that? And it's amazing. But anyway.
I love it. You know, I see some people talking about in the chat about how their animals speak and stuff. And my cat that you saw, Jack Shaka, he's real new, and I just got him a month ago. And the second time I was clipping his claws, he didn't want it done, and he was really scared. And he made this sound. He was like, ah, 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 ah. I mean, it was really clear, and I was just like, okay, buddy, I get you. That's cool. Like, where did he get that from?
That's amazing. I love that. He was like, I saw him at the beginning of the show look in the mirror. He was looking at himself in the mirror, which I always think is a lot of intelligence in an animal when they like see a mirror image and like, I don't know, you know, and really recognize themselves in a mirror image. I think, yeah.
He does that. Sometimes he'll be in my arms and we'll walk up to a mirror and he'll just like look at us and he'll be like, and then he will look at himself, and it's really cool to see. I love looking at the mirror myself too, like looking at the eyes and going, what's that? You know?
It's like, oh, that's me.
Well, I mean, no, I definitely start to get overly critical if I start to look at my physical comeliness or not. But if I look at my eyes and I really start to get into the soul of myself, pretty trippy. You ever done that?
Yeah, I guess I have. Probably when I was younger, more so than as an adult. Yeah. No, that's I was thinking of your cat being like, hey, that's me in the mirror, you know, like but then when they look at you in the mirror too, and like it's just a smart animal. I have to tell this funny story about a dog I used to have and a mirror, because this is actually really funny. I used to have another little dog named Mr. Pickles. And I got him when he was a little puppy, and I was training him to go out, but I was also like paper training him for the house. I was doing both with him. And so there was a mirror that was on the floor, and I had been putting the paper down, and it was just the mirror just happened to be there. We just hadn't hung it yet. Right. And so I was putting the paper down in front of the mirror, and left it there for like months or whatever. We didn't hang that mirror, not the poo paper, but the mirror. And I just kept putting it there. And then somebody moved the mirror like across the room at some point in time, but I put the paper where I always had. He went and pooped in front of the mirror.
Really?
I had mirror trained him on accident. Luckily, he decided once he grew up, he's like, no, I'm grown. I poop outside. Like, I don't do that baby shit in the house. He didn't want to mirror poop anymore. So I was like,
totally. I thought you were going to say that you mounted a mirror outdoors somewhere.
Which would have been, no, he got over it. He really was like, I'm grown. You know, I was okay. Because sometimes at that point in time, I would be gone a lot, and I didn't want him to have to hold it, you know. He was like, no, I'm good. He didn't want that. So, but I just thought it was funny. Like at first he did get like mirror trained. You got to be careful. You don't know what you're training them to do, really.
That's funny. Did you feel like, just jumping back to that spider real quick, has anything happened surrounding that? Like, was there any lesson for you in that experience?
No, not specifically. It just felt like communing, with one of my spirit. I hate to say spirit animals. It sounds so cliche, but with one of the spirits of the the beast that is with me. Like, I feel spiders are with me a lot. I love spiders, and I feel that spiders are with me a lot. Cool. Spiders are the storyteller, grandmother spider, weaving that web, spinning that web. She tells the stories of the future. Grandmother spider can change the past with the way she tells a story. Literally change the past, right?
Wow,
so
going back to the storytelling aspect of creating our realities, changing the past retroactively. Retcon spider, okay.
Yeah, and grandmother spider can do that, So that's some amazing magic in and of itself. So, like, when the spider was there, like, I wasn't surprised necessarily by it. I was delighted, that the spider wanted to spend time with me. So there was nothing specifically other than just feeling like, because, like, too, she had a little place that she would run to that was behind some glitter. It was like a glitter jar, and on the other side was a jar full of like little Palo Santo chips, that I couldn't use for 2 weeks while she was there. And she would run, kind of get behind there when there was a noise, but then she would come back out and sit in the web. And she just sat, like, openly in her web. She caught a couple of moths, which, I kind of had that experience. I think she just pretty much, like, drained their blood, because she didn't right. Wow. That's what she was eating in there. But for the most part, she just, like, hung out. And, like, so to me, it just felt like communion with an animal that I have a relationship with.
Yes. I can see that. And I'm hearing that from your story. That's a really cool way to look at it.
Yeah, right. Oh, yeah, it was fun. I enjoyed having her. So, and I wouldn't mind having another. Yeah.
All spiders welcome.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, be chill about it, but honestly, most spiders are not poisonous. I mean, mostly in the area that I'm in, brown recluse and black widow, and almost never see a black widow. There's brown recluse, but, like, they're reclused. So, like, if you kind of, yeah. So if you get smart about them, you don't have to worry about it too much.
Right. Yeah. Let those guys be. I've always been the kind of guy who, if I see a spider and I don't want him here, then I escort him out, safely in a cup or something, and don't harm the spiders,
Oh, God, don't harm the spiders. Oh.
Only recently, someone brought me a vacuum that they gave me, and after I used the vacuum the first time, a black widow spider came running out. I knew it was black widow because the spider came running out. I was like, oh, spider, I'm going to escort him out. I escorted him out and laid him down, and there was that hourglass. I was like, okay, that's a black widow. Glad I was nice to him.
Yeah. Well, that probably got you some points right there.
Hope so. So, I invited you here because I think you're so interesting, and I knew that we would go off into some interesting topics, and I love it. And so another reason I invited you here is because you are one of my heroes in the content creation world, and I'm just for a second going to draw it back to that practical area, because I'm just fascinated that you've been able to build what you're building now, and that you're embodying your art and your work and things, and you're making a presence online. And so I'm wondering, do you find that, how can I say this? Do you find that actually, it seems that you're building community as well as, showcasing your art and providing people with opportunities to work with you and stuff. It seems like you're also building community. And I just wonder, is that really stepping outside of your box, or has this been sort of a natural extension of things for you?
Well, I hope that, building community, building interrelated networks for sure, which is definitely something I've done in real life, like as an artist, as an activist. If you want to put it that way. I mean, I definitely have been an activist, but not all of creating networks may necessarily fall into that category. But yes, I think I've done that over the course of my life. I think that became really natural to me. And like I said earlier, I do really like to either, begin something and let it turn it over to somebody else, or to go in and patch, something up, an info shop, an old theater, a gallery, something that's like, and I don't even mean necessarily like patch it up in the physical form, but patch up where things are falling apart in the networks and the relationships of people that are there. So, yeah. And I can really let go of things when, like, we all have our needs for certain levels of control in our life, but I'm not necessarily, I can really put something together and let it have its own life afterwards. So I think that makes a person good at building something useful for others, is when you can let go and turn around and, and not come back and say, well, I wouldn't have done that with this place. It's like, well, then I guess you should have stayed and, control it and see how that worked out for you. But to be able to go back and be like, this is really cool, like what you all like, the way you ran with this thing. So yeah, I think it's something I've done over the course of my life, to greater and lesser success. I mean, people are people, and they are unexpected in a lot of ways. You can't always, you're like, oh, I didn't see that coming, from a person. And like that's the reality of life, and tumbling with that is not always easy, and communities and relationships fall apart, and networks fall apart all the time. I guess, if I have anything wise to say about it, it's that can't really stop you. Like, you just have to be like, all right, well, that thing, like that thing fell apart, or this aspect of it fell apart. And then, you take a breath and you see what's left, and you build something different, and you just keep going in real life and online. You got to do it in both places, I think.
Absolutely. Well said.
Thank you. I hope so.
You're funny. Are you? What is the thing that's coming up that you're really most passionate about? Well, let me rephrase that. What are you inspired of all the projects you have going on right now? You've got your podcast. You've got your political podcast. Did you say you have another show too?
Do I? No. I do keep a little YouTube channel, but I don't do like regular uploads or have like really a theme to it. I kind of like to read other people's poetry and like promote other people's poetry on it, but I haven't uploaded anything in a while. I have a little stack of other people's poetry I want to put up there and put on it. So I like it when you read other people's poetry. I've watched a few of those videos. It's cool. I like it. Awesome. Oh, thank you. Yeah. And I mean, other people have said that too. They appreciate it. There is something in here. That's why I keep looking over here. I'm like, is it really? See? The ghost spider. I kind of think it is, because I keep thinking, is it a moth? But it's like not. So there's just like, there's just something like hanging out kind of around my cup. It's just like some kind of little spirit. I don't know what it is. That's awesome. Cool. Okay. I don't know. Maybe it's a bug. But anyway, but every time I look over, it's not there. So anyway, what was I saying? I forgot. Oh, thank you for saying that. I like to read other people. I like to read other people's poetry, and like I think it's good for the poet to hear it sometimes in another person's voice, to hear the beats, the cadence that I put into it, or that another reader puts into it, and I think that can be a powerful experience. So I'm glad you like that, because I do want to put up some more. So I do have a little YouTube channel, but like I say, I'm not. It's just there for people if you want to look. And then I have the Secret Antenna podcast. I write a monthly tarot column. One of the great joys in my life is that I get to write a monthly tarot column for the city of New Orleans, which I just could not be more, I don't know, humbled and thrilled by that. Like, just, I mean, like, New Orleans is just like, it's been it's the love of my life, you know? And so for me to just get to be her tarot card reader every month, it's just like amazing to me. So I publish a column every month in a really great magazine called Anti-Gravity Magazine. Which you can find online every month as a PDF. You can also get it delivered to your house if you'd like. And it's got all kinds of awesome stuff in it, not just me. So that's
like a zine almost.
What's like a zine almost. It is. It's like a big zine. It's like like a big old paper. Yeah, it's great. It's got wonderful artwork in it and really in-depth articles. And I truly love the paper. That's the other thing is I'm like, I love this paper and I get to write for it for the city. So that's probably one of my favorite things that I get to do. And I love my workshops that I do, which I'm rolling some more out on that. You can always go look up everything I do is on my website, michelleembree.com, and just like, hopefully there's useful information. And I put up cards every day online. And like, I know, people give me great feedback about it and get something from it. So like, anybody listening, I'm not really trying to, have a sales pitch for you here. I do have a lot of work that I put out every day. That's, for everyone to like, and if you want something extra, then I'll charge you for that. But like every day, hopefully I'm putting out something into the world that's useful and positive and, but not fluffy. I'm not trying to say, like, see it and be it, I'm like, nope, life is tough. And if you show up for it, then that's what matters, and here's how we can do that together. So I hope that I put that into the world and it means something. And so anyway, that's out there for anybody who wants to watch it also.
That's so awesome. And I'll be sure to put in show notes and all that where you can be reached, because I think people definitely should get a touch of that. And I love that. I love that practical approach that you have in that no bullshit thing. It's like, it's real and it sucks sometimes, but there's magic too.
We're just like I say, we belong here. And even sometimes when I doubt myself, I'll hear this voice in my head that's like, because I'm like, why? And this voice in my head is like, you belong here though, and you belong here right now. And this is it. You belong, and in this time, so.
Wow, and such hard times to be comfortable in sometimes. It's good to recognize that.
I have to remind myself often, or they remind me. It's not even like me. It's like something else that's like, yeah, but you do belong here, and it's like, okay, or like if I'm having, because I give myself plenty of time to grieve too, and just for things, these species are dying every day, and, people are being killed. Just like, it's sad. And even when we are privileged and we have like food and heat and we get to make art and be on YouTube and, the privileges that are there, we go through such pain in our souls and in our minds. And we just like, we suffer the suit of swords, like we suffer so much despite these privileges that we have. And so it's just like, there has to be, so like I go through that also. And so, when, like I give myself lots of time to grieve and to cry and let that out. And also just like, this is something I recommend to everybody, like just telling yourself not to feel sorry for yourself. Some people have real problems. Stop it. What you do, this is what you do. You set a stopwatch on your phone and you give yourself 10 minutes to have a pity party. Okay, you have a little pity party with yourself. You have a 10-minute long or 15. You don't want to carry it on too long, but you set a timer and you're like, this is my pity party. And you have it. And for 10 minutes, nobody in the world has ever felt more pain or disappointment than you. And then when that alarm goes off, you're done. Your pity party's over and you carry on. If it's just you, it doesn't matter. You don't have to sit at home in your own like self and just decide that you can't feel bad about your life because other people have a harder life. There's always going to be somebody who has a hard, and you're not taking it out on the world. You're not calling on your friends and being like, I have the most suck ever. Like, you're not hurting anybody when you're alone having a private pity party. I just want to say that. So when I have my little pity parties, because that's part of how I take care of myself. Afterwards, all my things, all my stuff, my animals and my ancestors and my guides and all that stuff, they're like, you good? You good? All right, cool. Because you belong here. Welcome back. And I'm like, thanks. We got it. So anyway, I'll offer that. I felt that too. It's like, take that, use that. Thank you so much for having me on, Chander. This has been super fun. I so appreciate you.
I am stunned by what you just said, and I love that you were here. Thank you, Michelle. Wow. I just want to keep talking, but I know it's been a while, and I know people are starting to get sleepy and stuff, and I am terrible at exits. I just want to say that I hope that I can learn some things from you about successfully being an artist in the world, and I hope that we get to talk again. You've inspired me with thinking about how theater can interact with therapy and with coaching and things, and magic itself. And you've lifted me tonight, and you've brought a lot of magic and inspiration, and opened up a whole bunch of more rabbit holes for me to dive down. So thank you.
Good. Yes. Oh, thank you so much. I look forward to everything you're going to do on your channel. This is so cool. Thank you, Chander.
Heck yeah. Be well, Michelle. And thank you, everybody, for joining us. All of Michelle's info will be below. Be sure to go check her out and all the good stuff she does. And hopefully we will see you again for the next show. Keith from Prag Magic will be coming up soon. And also Navier Alora will be Aviv this coming Sunday. So I'll give everybody a shout out so you're there for that. And hopefully we'll see you all on your own shows too. I love you all so much. Have a great night, everyone. Bye, Michelle.
Bye.